Right now, I currently have the list of the biggest joke vehicles. Nobody's buying this crap. And I got this list primarily from CarEdge, but of course, I have also validated with checking the lots, seeing the high inventory levels. Nobody's buying this crap. Hey, Ray, Zach, come on down here. Come on. Come on, intro yourselves. Come on, don't be, don't be shy. Come on. Come on. I guess they don't want to come. Anyway, let's get to this list. Thanks, CarEdge, for a list of some of the biggest losers. These vehicles are, in the car industry, kind of considered a joke when you think about the market day supply should average about 60 days, 75 days. You're talking about probably a couple of months is really all we're dealing with. But honestly, this list of vehicles, it's no wonder nobody's buying them. I'm going to give you some of the reasons for that with each one of these. But with that said, because they're such poor sellers, there's a high probability you're going to get a phenomenal deal. So it's something to think about if you want to buy a strange, odd, obscure vehicle. Definitely stand out in some way, but you might be able to get a good deal because they're not selling. So you can probably go in there and wheel and deal and hustle and fast talk and, hey, what's that shiny? And then they'll look and you'll get a great deal. Anyway, the first one here, market day supply. Again, where target is about 60 days. That's a couple of months. And you're in good shape. I mean, the dealer, they get it, they prep it, they clean it, they wash it once or twice, and then it sells. It's usually pretty good, in and out the door in 60 days. Most Toyotas, Hondas, Lexus vehicles are kind of in and out within 30 to 45 days. So if that gives you a point of reference, some of those were always a little bit more desirable. But here, one of the list here is the Jeep Compass. The Jeep Compass is that garbage little base model entry level Stellantis product. And I've always said this, the Jeep should only be a Wrangler. That's the only Jeep, should be an internal combustion powered Wrangler. If you're buying a Jeep, that's the Jeep you buy. I actually have family that actually bought a Grand Cherokee. They blew an engine basically a couple of months outside of warranty. So I don't have a lot of faith in the brand, but the Compass is their smaller price point, which is odd that they're not selling. And only at about $32,000 for the average transaction price. It's kind of shocking to me. But they actually sit around 198 days supply according to CarEdge, that these are not going out the door. Nobody wants them. Why is that? There's not many SUVs you can get for just over 30 grand. There's a reason. Right. It's Stellantis. It's the quality. It's the lack thereof. I mean, we talk about the CVT transmissions. They're buzzy, underpowered. And yeah, there have been some enhancements in the last couple of years with the drivetrain. They're still not a great product in my own personal opinion. And unfortunately, the reputation has followed them around like sort of an anchor. It's a boat anchor of sorts. It's a parasitic. It's like a bad rash that just won't clear up. It doesn't matter what you do. You can go to the doctor 5 times. He prescribes you a different medication every time. That rash just won't disappear. That's the reputation that Stellantis has. Okay. Next one, we're talking about another one, not necessarily in this order. It's not always best to worst, but I'm going to give you the wham bam, the biggest, the ugliest, the worst one on the list at the end anyway, but I'll sort of mix these up a little bit. The next one here, of course, is a Volvo XC90. Now, Volvo, they don't have a lot of dealers across the nation with, I don't know, they've only got a couple of hundred dealers across the nation. They're spread out pretty thin. I know in the city I live, there's one Volvo dealer here. And they're not selling. You don't see a lot of them out there. The later generations apparently are not built as well. There's problems with accidents avoidance, pedestrian warning, tire pressure monitoring systems because they use a different type of sensor. The quality isn't quite there. Also, a turbocharged and a supercharged 4-cylinder engine and throw a little hybrid on there seems like a whole crap ton of problems waiting to happen. But, CarEdge is saying that you've got basically a 210 market day supply on those vehicles. And this is the big one. The XC90 should be selling. That's their hotspot. That's sort of their bread and butter, their moneymaker. And they're not selling. For $71,000, probably not a shocker. It's not a cheap vehicle by any means. But the Volvo's not selling. Okay. How about a big luxury wagon? Well, one thing that I've noticed is there's certain manufacturers that are struggling for sales. BMW seems to be doing pretty well. Porsche is not doing all that well. They don't have a lot of inventory sitting on the ground. Volkswagen, not selling all that well. When you think about VAG, Volkswagen Audi Group, Audis are selling like crap. They're just not selling. You know, with the tariffs they've had to consider, these prices are getting jacked up. And a lot of their vehicles just don't really inspire, especially when you're looking at sort of a milk carton. You know, you look at garden variety milk carton style, you know, with almost like an egg crate design. Not a good looking vehicle in my own personal opinion. Vehicles like the Audi A4, A5, A6. But most importantly, a lot of Audis aren't selling all that well. But there are some manufacturers in the luxury car segment that aren't selling well either, and a Mercedes-Benz SL is sitting around 199 days supply. So if you're looking at getting a big grandioso, big daddy of luxury cruisers, there could be some options there for you. And with that said, at $163,000, you better have damn deep wallets because they're not cheap. But, I mean, they're very nice, they're luxurious. I will say that Benz, you know, they've been going through some heartburn. You know, they just allegedly just canceled, and apparently for next year, the C63E AMG, which is supposed to be their hybrid Turbo 4. Who wants an M139? Who wants a Turbo 4 with a little hybrid? They're faster than the outgoing, but nobody wants that in an AMG, and that's a big reason for the crappy sales. Here's another example, the SL. So if you want to get one, you can probably get some deals. There are always dealers that are going to pretend that they're not giving you a deal. They're going to pretend that these cars are selling like hotcakes, but they're not. Just do a market day supply check on this and you'll see at almost 200 days supply versus the industry average, that looks more like about 60s to 75. They're several times, almost 3 times the duration to get one of those sold. Okay, how about another one? Here's a little beater. This one's a little surprising to me because one of the cheapest cars on the market, and everybody right now needs a break. I mean, regardless, cost of living, crisis or not. I mean, we're clearly looking at vehicles like the Nissan Versa. You know, Nissan's been struggling, and the only way they've been selling a lot of their products is by heavy pushes, heavy incentives. Sure, their Z car hasn't been doing too bad, and the Rogues have been selling because they've been pushing those out the door with extreme incentives. But all these incentives have cost Nissan profits. And now because of those lack of profits, they're still hanging on by a thread. But it's surprising to me because you have a vehicle like the Nissan Versa sedan, their smallest little crap box car. It's a great little commuter, and everybody moans and complains that they can't afford a new car. But have you looked at these? Now I get it. They got a garbage gearbox, and Nissan's had some reliability issues. The bigger issue here is the CVT transmissions. But ultimately, with 201 days supply, you're almost 3 times the average, the industry average to sell one of these vehicles. There's approximately about 14,800 on the market right now, according to the latest information of CarEdge. And they've only sold just over 3,000 in the last month and a half. So that's not great when you consider nationwide sales for the cheapest, one of the cheapest cars on the market at about $21,000. It's actually shocking. But, or is it? I mean, Nissan's had, again, it's that Jatco has been following them around like a bad rash as well. So anyway, that's another one. You might get a good deal. And you know what? We know Nissan's been trying to push those out the door too. So here's another one. We know more Maserati products, Alfa, Jeep, Dodge, Chrysler, Stellantis. Really, the big brother Stellantis. Well, the Maserati is not selling the Grecale all that well. With a 301-day market day supply, it's absolutely abysmal. 300 days from, say, 60? What is that, 5 times the time to actually sell one of these? And they're about $82,000. And honestly, nobody's buying these things. The Grecale, you can get a few different high performance, low performance versions. You get an EV version. So they have lots of selections, but nobody's buying them. I don't know. I personally think Maserati's a cool brand, but the problem is they've put too much Chrysler crap in there with the switchgear and the knobs and the buttons that just, they don't inspire. You know, they say there's an affiliation with Ferrari, but there's no way. Have you seen the way Ferraris are built? Have you seen the way Maseratis in 2025 and 26 are built? It's a totally different game. But 301 days supply, you could probably get a good deal there. Ford Mustang, another one. With about a $50,000 price tag for the average price or selling price of a Mustang, it's not a shocker. You know, I was down at the dealer the other day and I saw a couple of Mustangs for sale. And I kind of talked about that over on Exotic Car Play Place as well, where you get the EcoBoost Turbo 4s, you can get the V8s, the GTs, you can get the Dark Horse. I like the Dark Horse, it's cool. Get a manual gearbox and a Mustang 5 liter. That's a great sports car. Rear wheel drive, it's much more refined. But you know what? They're not selling. It's a niche market. Less and less people want a sporty car. More and more people want an SUV. And again, at an average selling price of 50 grand, you're right on the cusp, the high end of the average transaction price in the nation today. So it's right down the middle. But that being said, you know, those that are buying for lower cost vehicles aren't getting into these because that's half. If you're talking about not the average, but the median selling price, the ones below that split, people are buying smaller SUVs, smaller cars, Honda Civics, Accords. They're looking at little SUVs, RAV4s are one of the popular models, CRVs. And that kind of money, if you've got 40 grand, 45 grand, you're not able to afford a Mustang here on average. If you go over that, now people are looking like, okay, I've got say 60 or 70 grand. Now they're starting to look at the luxury car brands. And it's weird because it's so niche, they're splitting up the sales into smaller bite-sized pieces and nobody's buying it. I like the Mustang. It's a cool car. I was showing there on a recent video on Exotic Car Play Place, the fit and finish didn't look all that good. If you look at the hood and the fender line alignments weren't all that good. And these were brand new cars right off the truck. So I think the quality, a little bit of the Recall King crown of thorns, as it were, that Ford's carrying around is not helping them matters either. But 201 day supply at 50 grand is a Mustang. And so that'll be a challenging one to sell, of course, but you might be able to get a good deal. Hey, now as we sail into winter, it might be an opportunity to get one of your dream sports cars. Maybe you're retiring soon. Maybe you just want a sporty car and you want to get ahead of the game. 2026, guarantee these prices are all going up. So instead of paying next year's prices, pay 25 years, 2025 model year prices and drive it and enjoy it in 26. Because now as we're wrapping up 25. These are actually 26s in a lot of cases on the lots. Usually they start shipping out next year's models in late fall. So that's what you're starting to see. So you're going to able to get yourself not even a current model year, but an actual 2026 model year and get ahead of the game. Now we have another bit of a joker here. We have a little mini hardtop. And I think the minis are cool cars, but they're built by BMW. I actually have a friend of mine actually drives a Mini JCW. Shout out Mario. Great car. They're a lot of fun. They're cool looking, sporty. They certainly have a lot of presence, fun performance. But again, it's a niche car. So a lot of people just kind of wash over them. They also recognize that outside of warranty, it's effectively a BMW. So be prepared for elevated maintenance costs. And at an average price of close to 40 grand, it's not a shocker that it's about 197 day market day supply to get rid of one of these minis, the two-door hardtop. So cool cars, but again, hard sellers, very niche market. The sales have been gone. When they first came out, they were a hot tamale. And then they started kind of like watering it down. They started creating all these like Clubmans and all these larger SUV versions of the same product. They started with the little Cooper S, JCW, then they started building these bigger models, bigger SUVs, and they sort of lost their way a little bit. I know they're trying to fill all of the market gaps, but ultimately BMW, they're cannibalizing their own products. Why would you buy a Mini Clubman when you can buy an X3, right? So ultimately they're sold out of the same house, and that's a big part of it. They're competing with themselves a little bit in this game too. So the Mini with 197 day supply is a relatively poor seller. And we're not at the end yet. I'll share you a couple of duds. I already said VAG Group. You know, Volkswagen has been offering up big incentives for their some of the ID4, their ID Buzz. Actually, I was looking at the ID Buzz, extraordinarily expensive for what it is, in my opinion. I think they should need to price that down, chop those prices in half. Then you've got the value add. See, the value proposition has to be there. And if people don't see the value proposition, and the value proposition isn't just about the price. Price is one element, but there's price, practicality, reliability, longevity. There's all these other factors, day-to-day use, functionality, resale. All of these other components go into, you know, what is it going to be like to own, live, outside of warranty, fixability. When I sell it, is it going to get most of my money back? Those are all things people think about. And when they look at these, it's not just about the cheapest price available on the market. People are savvy, smart buyers now. They're looking for features, reliability, practicality, and all the rest. And that's why some of these cars are on the list. Maybe they meet or miss the boat in some way. Well, Audi, we have a couple of spuds there. Again, 60-day market day supply, maybe up to 75 or 2 months is kind of ideal. We have an Audi A6, which is about 224 market day supply, and they retail for about $67,000. Now that said, there's some revamps with some of these models, and that's a big part of why certain ones are doing better than others. If you're looking at the previous generation, say A4, it's not selling as well because, again, cannibalizing within the model lineups. You get the newer generation released in the 6, the S6, A6, are the new rehashed version. They have the newer revamped bumper system, nicer glass on the roof. They're kind of more smooth and integrated, a cleaner, much cleaner, prettier interior. But Audi is, Volkswagen, Audi, Porsche, they're not selling as well right now because they're high prices. There's been some quality issues and concerns. And again, it's just, with the tariffs and some of those prices sort of getting embedded in these vehicles, it's becoming a much harder pill to swallow. And, even an A4 here at 258 market day supply, the average price at $55,000, it's not a cheap vehicle. See, now you're up over the average market day, or the transaction price, which, again, the average is 50. Now, that being said, you can do much worse. If you're buying a new full-size truck, you think about an F-150 Platinum, and you're now at $105,000, $110,000. Or you're thinking about a tungsten Ram, you're at $120,000. You're thinking diesel pickup trucks, those are up in that $130,000+, at least Canadian funds. It's no wonder people are struggling today with the cost and the whole idea of the prices of some of these vehicles. But remember, I've got the last one, the drum roll here in a second. The key here again being delayed gratification. See, that's a phrase you're going to hear me over and over and over again. See, this is from the easy car buying's perspective. I've been in the industry a shit ton of time. I've owned hundreds of vehicles myself. I've worked in the industry selling, fixing, and everything in between of these cars. And one thing I've learned is it's heartbreaking to see people go broke. It's even more heartbreaking to see people get repoed on, which is kind of building and mounting. We're seeing more and more of that. So my advice is delayed gratification looks like save more money. Fix what you've got. Buy a new car when you can actually afford it, right? Don't go out and buy it because it's the latest and you think that it's such a buzz to have that. You don't want to show off to your neighbors. What's worse to show off your neighbors is when the repo man shows up with a tow truck and he pulls up and backs up and tows your vehicle away and it says Joe's Repo Services on the side and your neighbor sees that. That looks worse than having your old clunker in a driveway. So trust me, delayed gratification, save your pennies, put a much bigger deposit down, save your money, shorter loan terms. Ideally, pay cash is even better. But again, the biggest loser right now of cars that are just, they're not selling. And a lot of it is branding issues with this last one because at about a $71,000 price tag, they're not cheap. It's a luxury car vehicle or luxury brand. And there's certainly more expensive models out there. But sadly, here we're talking about only 312 sold in the last month and a half across the nation. That's pretty sad and pathetic. And on top of that, there's still about 2,300 for sale. The worst part is it's 332 days supply. You do the math. What is that? 332. I'm trying to calculate. 332 divided by 60 is shit. What is that? 6 times 6 is 36. That's about 5.5. I don't know. It's about 5.5 times the industry average to sell one of these vehicles. The worst part is you can't order these new anymore. These are brand new on the lots. They've stopped production. That's right, because the Jaguar F-Pace is the only product that Jaguar is selling. Ever since the rebrand, they've literally shot themselves in the proverbial foot. Anyway, I'd like to hear your thoughts. Definitely let me know below if any of these actually tickle your fancy, because there are some good buys here. And some of these are great cars, even the F-Pace. I like these. The Reface, these are nice vehicles. Almost every model on this list, I would probably consider buying for the right price. But again, it's your money and it's your time. So you've got to go in there and think about if any of these make sense. I'd like to hear your thoughts down below. And again, as always, have a wonderful day, everybody. See you then. Bye-bye.